Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's the Friday night edition of the program. Happy to be here with live. We're national, and I'm taking your calls, 833-4825-337, 833-4-Valdez, and lots of stuff in the news like always, but what I want to start with today is the federal courts weighing in, saying that, yes, the Trump administration, the United States government, the President of the United States, the Secretary of State, they are, in fact, allowed to revoke your green card, your visa, whatever they think they need to revoke if you're deemed a national security risk. Listen to this.
This is really only the beginning of this legal battle, but the administration gets the first victory in court. Mahmoud Khalil is a permanent resident. He was involved in pro-Palestinian demonstrations at Columbia University. He was arrested last month by federal agents following a deportation order from the Trump administration. Now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio alleged that Khalil can be deported because of his so-called beliefs, statements, or associations that would compromise U.S. foreign policy interests. Khalil's attorneys say in response, the government provided no evidence of criminal activity, and supporters say a deportation would create a chilling effect on free speech across the nation. Khalil spoke in court after the decision. He said that there's nothing more important in court than due process and fundamental fairness. Khalil's legal team has until April 23rd to appeal the decision in Louisiana. The case also will continue in New Jersey, where he was originally. The case will likely go on for months.
So that's that. And I can't say I didn't see that one coming. I think everybody saw that coming, right? That is how it works. You know, if you're take two. If you're a student of history, or if you study history, you'll remember all of the actions that President Lincoln took during the Civil War. And there was a lot, right? There's a lot he can do. There's a lot of power that governors have, police powers, a lot of powers that a president of the United States has. And these powers are granted not necessarily in wartime or anything like that. I know there's a lot of misnomers about that. But what it really is, it's about emergent situations. And the president can do a lot of things. Some of the same things we've criticized Volodymyr Zelensky, right? Remember him? Some of the things that he's done, Abraham Lincoln did. And this is not a defense of Volodymyr Zelensky. It's not. But I'm just saying, when you have to look out for your country, you have to look out for your country. And you're afforded certain powers. It's that simple. And if you see someone in your country that is not a naturalized citizen, that, you know, doesn't have a history there, that is here and causing problems, right? And I would say, Dick Brennan from Fox 5 said this was a pro-Palestinian, I guess some might label it that, but the reality was this was a hostage-taking event at Columbia University. A hostage was taken. Somebody was arrested for that. This guy organized the whole thing. This was not some sort of protest. This wasn't a bunch of people just, chanting, hell no, we won't go. And the fact that the media continues to parade around with this charade should alarm a lot of people. It definitely alarms me, because we can't operate in a society where we just make stuff up. But that's what happened there. And this guy, you don't get to come to the country to disrupt the country. You don't have a right to be here. And that's facts, right? I mean, people are getting deported for a whole lot less. So just imagine that. And I think there's this big misconception about, this, what's the word I'm looking for? This sense of entitlement that I don't think should continue. And I hope that people start to get the point that it's a privilege to be an American. You know, it really is, in my opinion. You could say what you want, sure. That's the part of the privilege, right? You can run around and practice whatever religion you want to practice. You can run around and criticize the sitting president of the United States. You can run around and do a whole lot of things. And you're never going to get gunned down by the government, right? Because your speech is protected. But this person engaging was not speech. This was, as Secretary Rubio said, this was something that was antithetical to United States foreign policy. When you saw these college campuses, they looked like war zones. Shattering glass, hitting Jewish students in the head, taking janitors from the Dominican Republic hostage. I saw that guy on the news. I'll never forget that. This is a tough guy from New York, and he was like, I was afraid for my life. They would not let me leave. Just imagine that. Just imagine you go to work to be a janitor or whatever else you do for a living. And then because somebody's, quote unquote, exercising their freedom of speech, you get trapped in a building. And the only thing between you and the riot cops that are trying to save you are the people in front of you throwing, all sorts of whatever they're throwing, frozen bottles of water, bricks, rocks, you name it, spraying mace, bear spray, all of that stuff at the cops. Right? 'Cause that's really what was happening here. Lighting fires. That's not protest. It's anarchy. That's an insurrection, and it needs to be put down. Anyway, so that's that. And anybody who's on the terror watch list, they can expect the same. That's going to happen to them, too. Now, let's see. Oh, we have a new chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Lieutenant General Dan Raisin Kane has been confirmed to lead the Joint Chiefs. So congratulations to him. Acting ICE director says that mass deportations should be run like Amazon Prime, but with human beings. Very quickly, right? Very quickly. I get that. Very, very quickly is correct. Maybe they should hire Bezos to oversee this. How are we doing this? How do you get these returns processed so quickly? Let's get her done. Anyway, lots to discuss tonight. There was a helicopter accident in New York City yesterday, and it's unfortunate. I think I shared, very quickly about, my own experience doing that same type of tour. I did it with my girlfriend, who then became my wife, many years ago, and it was nice. You see everything. You see the Statue of Liberty. You go between the Twin Towers. It was really nice. And this family that was on there just, it didn't work out. But we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about what the NTSB, the watchdog group, our government agency overseeing accidents, had to say about it, as well as what some of the pros, former pilots and whatnot have to say about it. So we're going to do that. We're also going to get into a few other things tonight because, it's Friday and I like to get into lots of different topics. So keep it locked right here. It's Rich Valdez. We're here till midnight or 1 a.m., depending on what part of the country you're in. And for those of you on the West Coast, I'm 7 to 10 in a lot of places. So keep it locked. Put your hair up. Put your feet up. Get comfortable because we're about to do a whole bunch of good radio tonight. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So glad to be on your show, Rich. It's just an amazing broadcast that I hope the rest of America listens to every day.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I see a helicopter disintegrate in midair, and then I heard a loud sound.
This witness, like many living along the Hudson River, watched as the tourist helicopter plummeted into the water, killing the pilot, along with Siemens executive Agustin Escobar, his wife, and 3 children.
Oh my gosh.
Many captured video moments telling a terrifying tale FAA records show that the Bell Long Ranger model had an airworthiness certificate valid through 2029, and that federal authorities had previously investigated the company operating the Hilo for their involvement in 2 prior safety incidents, one in 2013, another in 2015. Maintenance records are not made public, and the NTSB restricts what companies can disclose during an ongoing investigation, but witness accounts may give some experts a clue. For City News, I'm Laura Aguirre.
So that's what's going on with this case in New York, and I wanted to get a little context on it from somebody who's a former Army, military, and state police helicopter pilot. He's also an expert on aviation overall. Mike Hatten, welcome, sir.
Welcome, Rich. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So what is your initial take on what happened here? Because I haven't seen many videos, but the one video I think I keep seeing is, there's no smoke. Doesn't look like anything blew up or anything. It just looks like it stopped working and it fell like a brick right into the water.
Well, you're absolutely correct. And I think at this point, we could speculate on many different causes, but I think the safest thing to say right now is that there was some type of catastrophic failure. Now, that may sound a little elementary, but that's the initial thoughts that I have about this. And the tail boom obviously broke off the aircraft, and many times that will cause what's called mast bumping. That's when the rotor bumps the mast and the mast goes into the transmission. And that's the part of the helicopter we saw fall that was still spinning, separated from the aircraft. Now, that can happen first and then cut the tail boom off. So the investigation will tell us that, but that's the 2 events that I see that happened that I can, confirm happened because we saw it on live TV or on film.
Yeah. Now, Mike Hatten, when you have spent a career up in the air like you have, when you've seen this happen in the past, what typically contributes to this type of, is it a mechanical failure? Is it a maintenance issue, a deferred maintenance issue? Is it, like sometimes with airplanes, birds get caught in these engines? What do you presume happened here?
Well, again, it could be a multitude of things. A large flock of birds could have possibly hit that rotor system while it's spinning, maybe caused a reaction from the pilots to avoid them or something that was a little too abrupt. That can cause mast bumping, which can lead to separation, the rotor blade striking the tail boom and lead to separation of the tail boom. Now, I will say that helicopter has had, not that specific helicopter, but that model helicopter has had cracks in the past. I lost 2 very good friends at a place that I worked shortly after I left because the tail boom separated, just like in this accident from the aircraft. That caused mast bumping. That caused an accident and 2 lives were lost. As a matter of fact, there is something called a doubler or a reinforcement plate that had been installed on that tail boom near that area on all models that was required by the manufacturer on that tail boom of that aircraft to prevent cracking, but it wasn't always effective.
Okay, so this means that this particular helicopter has had a history of these types of tail boom issues. Is this a normal occurrence? Again, I don't do much helicoptering. I've only done it once. That I went on a similar tour right there from New York Harbor. And I don't know much about anything with that when it comes to that. But is this like the type of helicopter you go, I don't want one of those. And then, maybe the company you work for goes, yeah, but we're buying those because those are, $50,000 cheaper than the other ones. Or are they all kind of the same?
Well, I wouldn't describe it quite like that. And as far as a history, I wouldn't say a deep history. History kind of implies, a deep history, but I know of 1 or 2 incidents where this has happened before. Like I said, one I had personal, knowledge of because I knew the occupants. As far as the price or the safety record of this aircraft, the Bell Long Ranger was the safest business aircraft in America, not business rotorcraft, but business aircraft, including airplanes, jets, things like that. It was for several years. It was the safest aircraft. So the aircraft while all aircraft have some minor problems like that from time to time that get worked out, the Bell does have a very, very good safety record, and it is a good aircraft.
Now, Mike Hatten, what do you think is the next step here? Because it seems like Jennifer Homendy, the chair of the NTSB, is making an appeal for additional information, asking the public to relinquish any videos they might have. Listen to this.
Now, what we are hoping is that we are able to get the public to send us any photos or video you may have, or if you want to contact us because you believe that you have information that could be pertinent to our investigation, please reach out to us, provide that information to us. We will get in contact with you at the following email address: witness@ntsb.gov. That's witness@ntsb.gov.
So, Mike Hatten, again, I don't know if this is a very typical practice in an NTSB accident investigation or not. I'm sure that the family and everybody involved peripherally wants to know what's going on. But to me, I get the message that they don't really have a clue of what's going on either.
Well, I think they know what happened. They just don't know the sequence of events. And that's the first time I've heard that, and I'm glad you played that because that was an urgent appeal. And that tells me that they are likely trying to determine through video evidence whether it was the tail boom that separated first or the rotor that separated first, like I described earlier. Now, through the course of the accident, they will be able to determine that when they reconstruct the aircraft, if they're able to recover enough pieces and parts of it, and I'm sure they will be able to, but they will be able to determine that through that. But they do want verification through video evidence, and at least maybe what direction to start in if they can get that video evidence.
Well, Mike Hatten, I really appreciate the analysis and the insight. Former military pilot, former state police helicopter pilot. Mike, if people want to learn more about you and what you're doing and how you're doing it, where do they go and how do they learn more about you?
Well, if they have any questions, they can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Mike Hatten, and they can also email me at mikehatten@me.com, mikehatten@me.com. That's MikeHatten.
Outstanding. Well, thank you for being with us. Thanks for giving us a little clarity on this as it unfolds. We might be back in touch with you to get a little bit more of your expertise. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You bet. Now, amigos, we continue. We're going to have lots of discussion tonight. We're going to get into a number of things, not the least of which will be our conversation with Jill Robin Payne. For those who haven't heard her before, she's terrific. We're also going to have a conversation with Jack Watts. He is an author. He's got a lot of books under his belt, by the way. And we're going to talk about a recent book he's got that highlights something very, very interesting because it's National Child Abuse Prevention Month in April, and it's also Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And he's got a book on this, which is really interesting because this is a topic that doesn't get discussed very, very often, and one that, when these things come around, I like to talk about. Ever since we had that guest on, I don't know if you remember that conversation, but the woman who was a victim of sibling sexual assault. I don't know if you remember that. That was a crazy interview. She was a real champ, and I really appreciated her for her honesty. Anyway, we're going to continue all of our discussions tonight. Your calls and more, 833-4-VALDEZ.
That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Particularly heinous and just disturbing to read.
That's Lincoln County Prosecuting Attorney Mike Wood's reaction after poring over the alleged abuse committed by Brenda Deutsch of Winfield.
Two things that really stood out was the number of children that had been fostered through that home, and then the allegations that these types of abuse and emotional neglect had been going on for what seems to be perhaps a decade.
However, a recent case sparked a police investigation on November 21st. A school resource officer at a Lincoln County school noticed a student missing. According to charging documents, Deutsch requested to take a girl in her care to her friend's home in Texas. The child was often left alone there in dirty living conditions with exotic animals, which Wood said Deutsch collects. The attorney explaining a monkey was potentially exchanged along the lines of human trafficking.
A witness who had come forward, who had some information regarding the systemic abuse that was going on in the home, had said that they had been asked to bring the child down to Texas and then bring the monkey back in return. Obviously, we have to do more investigation to see if that's actually credible, if it's true.
The girl also told investigators she was severely beaten for years. Wood was shocked they didn't previously have any police reports, requests of criminal investigations, or prosecutions.
As we kind of broke it open, it seems like apparently it was a very well-known residence that cycled through this abuse, which obviously is really disturbing and problematic.
The female victim is now in protective custody in Texas.
Man, what a story. Godspeed to this little girl. This is horrific, but check this out, right? Again, I think you heard it right. A Missouri foster mom to 200 children is accused of trading a child in her care for an exotic monkey. Her name, Brenda Ruth Deutsch, 70 years old. She was arrested on these allegations. You were listening to the prosecutor there give his thoughts on this. And this is insanity. Now, I worked in the state of New Jersey. This is the work I did was in this area, right? Child abuse prevention, community partnerships to prevent child abuse and all that. And I can tell you, this is horrific, right? But listen to the quote here from the prosecutor. At least 2 witnesses have come forward with information regarding the transportation of the monkey back to Missouri after the child was delivered. But we will have to further investigate whether that was actually a trade for the child or if it was something that does not rise to the level of trafficking. Now, call me what you want to call me, but I open up this article I'm looking at. It's got a mugshot of this woman. The second I see this woman, the first thing I think is, I would never give this woman a child. She looks like bad news. Now, it's a good thing I don't work there in in the Department of Children and Families anymore. Or maybe it's not. Who knows? But I can tell you that you got to go with your gut sometimes. And when you see somebody that clearly looks like they're a menace to society, you got to follow your gut. You got to say, look, this lady es una loca. How do you just deposit a child with her? Now, I'm going to back up and say, having worked in this, I can tell you how. People show up and they have work. Good people, good intentioned people show up. They want to help children. And they do what they think is right. And they get overworked. And they have minimal resources. And I don't know the answer to the question of what came first, the chicken or the egg. But I can tell you when I was a kid, and again, I'm not that old, 46. But when I was a kid, it was not uncommon to hear about someone coming from a place called an orphanage. And this orphanage was a place where little kids lived. You all know that, right? I'm preaching to the choir here. And it was run by a church. Sisters of Mercy, Sisters of this, Sisters of the Holy Cross. It was always some sort of religious order that operated an orphanage. Now, today, it seems like there is no orphanage anymore. I don't see any orphanages anywhere. I don't see any. I don't hear of any. And in recent years, like the last 20 or so, whenever it was that they implemented, at least in Jersey, something called the New Jersey, I think it's called the Safe Haven Act, where they said, we're not going to prosecute you with a crime. If you want to give up and abandon your child, you can do it at any police department, fire department, hospital, or church. And people praised this as, we needed this because they were throwing kids in the garbage. True, they have thrown kids in the garbage. And you do, I guess, if things are that dire, you need to remind people, okay, listen, you don't have to throw your living kid in a trash can. You can actually give it to a hospital and they won't charge you. So I understand why they made this law. But the fact that we made this law, does that not alarm anybody? That people are having kids and throwing them away? And this is not an invitation. Cue the crazies who are abortion freaks to call and say, no, what, Rich, that's because you've made abortion so rare, these girls don't have a chance. They don't have a choice. They're forced to give birth to these kids and throw them in trash cans. Now, to that I say, F you, you're lucky you're not in my face. Because how do you try and trivialize these things, right? And there was that story we did the other day about the woman who was being interviewed, and they get into a tit for tat on abortion, and the lady punches the lady in the face, right? Because she was like, you're not going to force me to have this kid. How dare you? Pat, pat, pat. And, gave her a two-piece. Lady from the Bronx. Crazy. So here's this lady. Again, I'll give you her name again, just for the sake of everybody who might know her. Brenda Ruth Deutsch, 70 years old. This woman is accused of trading a monkey for a kid. Who knows what they did with this kid? Now, for those of you who've listened to this show for any extended time, you've heard our guests. We've had many a guest on this show talk about, I was trafficked out by my own family. It wasn't always strangers. In one case it was. The kid was kidnapped. But in another one, or in most of them, it was their family. People with abuse issues in their family, substance abuse issues, that would let the kid go with somebody for money in exchange for something. Now listen, we've had Joe Exotic, the Tiger King, on this show. He likes exotic animals. He had tigers. And, I like Joe Exotic. I think he's a cool guy. I think having a collection of exotic pets is a cool thing if that's what you do. But it's not lost on me that these are typically very eccentric people, right? And Joe, if you're listening, I love you, but you're pretty eccentric, right? It's not something everybody does, collect exotic pets. Now, he did it more of as a rescue for the tigers and whatnot. But this woman says here she collected these pets. Now, maybe she saw herself as a rescuer of children, a rescuer of pets. I think this woman's delusional. I think she's a loca, and she probably has some sort of issue somewhere. And again, maybe I'm, jumping the gun here. Maybe this is all a mistake, right? I have to give her the presumption of innocence. But I can't help, as a dad, think for a second that some little girl who's admitted to being beaten many times, and that's not okay, that somehow it's a far cry from being beaten to being traded for a monkey. That's insanity. And I don't know the answer to this problem, but I can tell you, more government is not the answer to the problem. Ronald Reagan said it best. The answer to the problem isn't more government, because government is the problem. I'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I'm honored, man, to be able to have a voice on your platform. There's probably 140,000 federal inmates that listen to you at night.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company on the late shift here till, a couple hours from now. On the East Coast, that's midnight or 1 a.m. If you're out in the Pacific time zone, that could be 7, 8. Who knows, right? We're doing drive time in Hawaii. Big shout out to our friends in Hawaii. Aloha. And I want to get into this one because, my least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens is AOC, all-out crazy, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. But she is being rivaled by Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett is quickly becoming the new loca to look at. Because why? She always has something interesting to say. She is going to have such an amazing career in working on The View or working in talk radio or doing a podcast or CNN or something like that, because she's just way too entertaining. Listen to this.
Some version of a constitutional crisis or showdown between the courts and this administration almost since day one. Are you heartened at least by the unanimity of this decision of the court saying at least siding with the district judge provisionally here?
I mean, to a certain extent, I feel like I'm in an abusive relationship. I think all Americans may feel like we're in an abusive relationship with this administration as well as with the Supreme Court that struggles to really earn the trust of American citizens, right? And at a time in which we really are wondering whether or not there is going to be this ultimate clash between an order from the Supreme Court and this administration, again, we're kind of in this space where they're basically saying in a unanimous way, which again, as you pointed out, doesn't happen very often. They are saying, you know what? We all agree. And it is very difficult to get them to all agree on anything. So we will see what this administration does. But as far as I'm concerned, if you can figure out how to get them down there, you can figure out how to get them back.
Okay. Listen, Jasmine Crockett, thank you for that. You made my Friday night. Now, here's why. Jasmine Crockett has such a limited understanding, right? And she's the lawyer, right? I'm not a lawyer. She's a lawyer. But it seems like her understanding of how our system of laws works is kind of skewed. And I know that's tough for many to swallow, right? 'Cause some are going to say, well, hold on, Rich Valdez, hold on. You're going to tell me you worked in government for a little while, you're a small business owner, and now you talk on the radio. Somehow you know more than a woman who went to law school, has a law degree, and is a member of the United States Congress? Yes. And I'll explain to you why. Because she has no idea what she's talking about. The mere idea, look, if Joe Biden would have tried to deport anybody, I would not have, been up in arms. But if he tried to deport even at least the bad guys, even if there was like a little crackdown after the whole Laken Riley murder. But no, he didn't try anything. And it seems like she's okay with that. Jasmine Crockett's okay with people that make it a habit and a practice to rape and murder people. Now, I'm not saying every illegal alien that's in the United States is a rapist and a murderer. I'm talking specifically about the rapists and murderers and those that are coming here to disrupt our country through subversion and things of that nature, like Mr. Mahmoud Khalil, who led a coup, right? He literally held a Dominican janitor hostage. Not he, but, one of the people under his command as he was leading this siege on Columbia University campus, breaking windows, starting fires, crashing with hundreds of riot cops. This is not a protest. I mean, if you want to put it mildly, you could say it was a riot, but you can't call it a protest. You can't say this was free speech. Nobody has free speech rights to go and destroy a college campus and keep somebody who works at the college hostage. And again, I keep saying these Dominicans. I don't remember his name, but I know Dominicans who live uptown in Washington Heights and in the Bronx. These are not wallflowers. This guy was petrified. When I saw the video, when he was talking, and he said, I was afraid for my life. He wasn't playing it up for the cameras. This guy was afraid. This guy lives in New York City. He probably dodges a couple of bullets on the way to work every day. Has had to probably, take on somebody with a knife in his hand at some point in his journeys through the city. And at some point, he's taken hostage by a bunch of people that support the Hamas terror organization. And he says he's scared to death, afraid for his life. If a tried and true tough New Yorker, and he wasn't the only one, right? There were others that were not necessarily being held where he was. He was being held like sequestered by himself. But there were others. Everybody was afraid. This was not a protest. So when you want to kick somebody like that out of the country, like Mahmoud Khalil, go right ahead. And if Joe Biden would have done that, I don't think any conservative would have fought him on that. But yet here you have Jasmine Crockett saying, I feel like I'm in an abusive relationship. Why? Why do you feel abused? Because the courts don't agree with you? Because the courts are following the law? How many times does the court put out something I don't like? I just criticize the judge, right? Because usually it's just one judge, maybe a two. Amy Coney Barrett, as of late, seems to be missing the mark as a jurist, in my opinion. But you have the other three that are reliable, right? Kagan, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, and Sonia Sotomayor. So what's the big deal here, Crockett? Well, the big deal is that Crockett always has to have something to say, and I get that. That's okay. I kind of do the same thing. The big difference here is I was not elected to go represent the people of Texas in Congress like she was. And then she goes out here and she creates this false, this false image that somehow we should allow, like any United States government, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, that we should allow someone to come to the country and start this type of riot here when they're not even a citizen. Right? They came here to make problems. This is open and shut where I come from. I have no idea why she's got her shorts in a twist over here, but doesn't she always? Jasmine Crockett, amigos. We'll keep you posted on what she has to say. And, of course, Congresswoman Crockett, you're welcome to join me on the show anytime. Anytime. I'd love to have you. My gut tells me you probably won't accept, but the invitation remains. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company all night long. And there's a bunch of things that are going on today in the news. I don't want to get too ahead of myself because I got, another 2 hours of radio to go. And some of you might be hearing this a little jumbled up at a different time. But right now it is 9 p.m. hour Eastern time. Probably not supposed to say all that, but I do just for the sake of transparency. Transparency. And you know who else is being transparent? Caroline Leavitt. She was talking about President Trump going in for a physical today and how he puts everything out there. Listen to this.
And about the former president and transparency regarding his health.
Well, I can tell you there was certainly a lack of transparency from the former president, from the entire former administration, and frankly, a lot of people in this room when it came to the health and the competence of the former president of the United States, Joe Biden. There was one of the greatest cover-ups and frankly political scandals this nation has ever seen. It's been unraveled in some recent books that are being written by journalists who engaged in that cover-up and scandal, which is quite ironic. But this president is clearly committed to transparency. You in this room see him and hear from him on a daily basis. You in this room know from covering him, it's hard to keep up with him. He is a machine working around the clock every single day. And the physician after today's physical will provide an update on the report in the effort of transparency.
I got to tell you, it's so refreshing to have a White House press secretary that knows what's going on, is able to give firm responses. I love it. I'm happy that she's there. Shout out to Caroline Leavitt. And for El Trumpito for being so transparent, right? Talk about transparency and health. Joe El Baboso Biden. This guy was faking it till he made it every single day. Lost half the time, and everybody said, no, he's fine. He's in the best of health. Remember that? What a cover-up. Anyway, we're going to talk about a bunch of things with one of my favorite psychologists, Jill Robin Payne. She's coming up in the next hour. Keep it locked right here. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's the Friday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national, and our phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And man, I just watched this video. Wasn't what I was going to talk about, but it's what I'm going to talk about. A video on a college campus. I think it occurred in Boston. And really, really disheartening, man. I mean, just one of those things that it's like, man, is this for real? This shouldn't be the case, right? It's not right, but it is. And I'm watching this video here. And it's this kid, he's an activist. He's walking on a college campus and some lefty crazy walks next to him and just starts antagonizing him. You effing Nazi, effing this, effing that, yelling at the top of his lungs, getting in his face, take your camera. I mean, really well trained at antagonizing. And it was just, God bless this kid for having the patience of a saint. And it makes me think, if they use these tactics on a lot of people are going to take the bait. A lot of people are going to say, you know what? I am happy to pay the $1,000 in bail tonight and the whatever, $3,500, $4,500, $8,000, whatever it's going to cost me to fight this simple assault charge. I'm going to headbutt you. I'm going to break your nose. And I'm not saying I would do it, and I'm not saying you should do it. But I'm saying somebody out there is going to say, do I buy a new car? Do I redo my kitchen? Or do I just bust you in your grill? And people are going to take this bait. And maybe if they have no priors, maybe they get off. Maybe they get it dropped with a good lawyer. So, simple assault might become a disorderly person. Who knows? It's almost like the odds are in your favor, depending on what city you're in. If it's in New York City, good luck. You could shoot the guy and probably not get in trouble. So I think of this and I'm thinking, why are people so emboldened? And then I'm looking at my show prep for tonight and I see former Attorney General Eric Holder. Remember him? He was on MSNBC, and he's just reminding people, if we don't fight, here's what happens. Listen to this.
Every citizen in this country ought to be afraid, because the reality is, if they are successful in doing this to immigrants...
Every citizen in this country ought to be afraid. Does that sound like a statesman? Does that sound like a cabinet official? Does that sound like a leader? Every citizen should be afraid. That sounds to me like demagoguery coming from the demagogue-in-chief's top lawyer, making sure that you're afraid of something. It sounds like boogeyman fighting. It sounds like I'm trying to coerce you, control you, and make sure you're afraid of something so that you'll always be on edge, so that when you see somebody walking around with a MAGA hat, you will antagonize them. Go ahead.
Now they're doing things against American citizens, as you talked about before.
Hold it. Who's doing things against American citizens? I don't see anybody doing anything against American citizens except Eric Holder's friends, like this pendejo that was in this video that I just watched, where he's, verbally berating this kid, baiting him into throwing hands, baiting him. I'm not saying that people should take the bait. I'm saying people are going to take the bait. If you're walking around with a MAGA hat, which is your right, and somebody's going to get in your face, at some point, someone is going to be like, I've had enough. And they're hoping that happens so they can get it on tape and say, look at how violent the MAGA people are. So kudos to all of these peaceful MAGA people that are led by the Holy Spirit and anything else, reason and logic and good common sense. Because this is not an easy gig when you have guys like Eric Holder out there on TV making a call to arms over here. Listen to this.
criticize the president, it won't be too long. And the president himself has said he had no objections to taking convicted criminals and putting them in the same jail in El Salvador. There's a treadmill that we're potentially getting on here that could result in the erosion of rights for American citizens. Now, I'm not saying that's the only—
Hold on a second. There is a treadmill that we're getting on that could end us in the erosion of rights for some citizens. Mr. Attorney General Eric Holder, what does that mean? What treadmill are we getting on? So far, he said a whole lot of nothing. He said Americans should be afraid. He talked some more crap, and now he's saying, because we're on a treadmill, that could lead to the erosion of your rights. You tell me whose rights are eroded. This kid, let me see if I can find his name. I wish I had, there's so many F-bombs in this, I can't play it on the radio. Otherwise, I would. It would take forever to edit. But this video with this kid, I'll tell you his name. This is Rogan O'Hanley's video, DC Drano. He always has great stuff. If you're not following him, you're missing out. And this kid's name is Real Nicky Michelli. Real Nicky Michelli, 4547. That's his handle on Instagram. He's walking around with a MAGA hat, making a video on a college campus, likely as a conservative, saying, hey, I'm on a liberal college campus, blah, blah, blah. You know, talking his smack, doing his thing, free speeching it, right? And this guy comes and he's like, all right, I'll free speech it with you. Cool. But he's not free speeching it. He's not like, you know what, why do you like Trump? He's like, take that effing hat off, you Nazi, you this, you that. This is not how you have debate. This is not how you have discussion. Yeah, it's free speech for sure. And I'll allow it. But I'm just saying, somebody's going to have had enough. And here's Eric Holder saying it's you and me. It's El Trumpito. We are the people that are causing the problem? Nah, bro. I don't think so.
The only reason that we should be concerned about this. People who are in this country deserve the ability to go before courts and have courts make determinations about whether they can stay, whether they should leave, how they should be treated. And
Hold on. If I'm not mistaken, the court weighed in today, Attorney General Pendejo, sir, with all due respect. And guess what? They said the United States government has the right to revoke this person's permanent status if they are acting up, right? For lack of better words. They feel that they need to go. They're able to do that. Go ahead.
Administration wants to take upon itself to the derogation of the ability
Hold
of
on,
the
Mr. Attorney General. Now you're just being duplicitous, right? The administration wants to take on itself. Let me remind everybody that this guy was the Attorney General of the United States. He was not the corporation counsel for the town that we live in. He was the Attorney General for the United States of America. He knows full well that there is one person that is the entirety of the executive branch, and that is the sitting president. Why? Because he worked for a sitting president, Barack Hussein Obama. And he knew exactly how much authority the president had because he was the president for America. And now he's going to say that the administration has taken it upon themselves. If the administration can't take things upon themselves, who can? Go ahead.
And certainly of the legislative branch, the ability to decide everything. This is how you get authoritarianism. This is remarkably similar to kind of what happened in Europe in the 30s. It's consistent with what we saw happen in Hungary and in Turkey in later days over the course of the last 10, 15, 20 years. And that's not a path that this country wants to go down. And I want people to understand this. If you don't stand up and fight now, if you don't take a position now, it's going to be too late. We can't say we can wait just a little longer. No. The time is now to stand up and do all that we can to fight this administration.
This man just said that he's seeing things happen like he's seen happen in 20 years in Turkey and in Nazi Germany in the 1930s. Anybody who can try to draw parallels to this is smoking some serious ganja. They're doing something. There's a little bit more than Malbec in their wine cup. You know what I mean? This is, I have trouble even really some of these metaphors are just so out there. You know, if I make a metaphor and I say the Democrat Party is destroying the fabric of America, It's because I believe that their policies are truly doing that. Their open border policies are changing the America we knew for a new America. I think that's pretty valid and fair. But for Eric Holder to say that the justice system working, they sued, they went to court. The court said Trump is okay. He's allowed to do that. Rubio's okay. The administration can do that. The executive branch has authority over immigration. Thank you. Have a good day. He was the attorney general. Why can't he accept that? He has to go now and say this is Nazi Germany in the 1930s, and if you don't fight now, what are we going to lose? Who's getting thrown in an oven? The only people that are being threatened with anything is me. It's my people, not you. Unbelievable. You know, listen, I'm on a short fuse today, shorter than most days, because I've had enough. I've had a little bit too many lefties in my way, in my day. I'm glad it's Friday. But I'll tell you this. I'm normally a lot more mild-mannered. I'm normally a lot more tranquilo, if you will. And if you love talk radio, if you love this show, our podcast, and thanks for the 5-star ratings, by the way, then you're going to love the radio that I recommend. Because the C. Crane Radio CC3, right? It's the one you need, the CC Radio 3. It delivers exceptional spoken word audio clarity. It makes you feel like me, your favorite host, is right in the room with you. You've got this long-range signal, so you get stations from all over the place. And you've got emergency features like the NOAA weather and the 2-meter ham band. This is good stuff. Most radios don't have that. It also runs on a power cord that it comes with, or you can use the batteries that give you over 170 hours of radio life. Come on. That's more than you need to hear me for a week. Now, the CC Radio 3 is the almost everything radio because it does so much. You can listen to your favorite podcast. This is America with Rich Valdez, America at Night with Rich Valdez. We got some podcasts out there. You can listen to this show live when we air all across the country every night. You could listen to music with it from your Bluetooth speaker, from your smartphone, or from your smart speaker. How do you get one? Let me tell you. Write this down. You're going to call C. Crane's U.S.-based customer service. They're out of California. 1-800-522-8863. That's 800-522-8863. Or visit the website, ccrane.com/rich. I'll spell it out for you. That's C, then another C, RANE.com/RICH. ccrane.com/rich. Use promo code RICH, RICH. When you check out, you're going to get 10% off any order that's over $75. So be smart. If you're getting a promo code and you're saving all that money, why wouldn't you get more than one radio? Get one for everybody that you care about that might get stuck in a blackout, might get stuck in an emergent situation that needs to listen to the radio, needs to listen to an emergency update. Get the people you love one of these radios. Do it now.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Thanks for what you do. You have so many people. You ask the questions that if a viewer had a microphone, they would ask that question, and you seem to always ask it right at the right time. So God bless you, my friend.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. It's Rich Valdez. And, you know, every now and again, I look at some of the news, I listen to some of this audio, and I get a little fired up, right? My brand is typically I don't get fired up, but sometimes I do. Today's one of those days. Maybe because I was expecting April 11th to kind of be like a nice day, and instead it's been freezing today. Freezing. Listen, anything lower than 50 is freezing, in my opinion. And it's definitely freezing out here today. Now, I could say to myself today I've got my boxers in a bunch. Because, you know, too many lefties. You got Eric Holder telling people we're becoming Nazi Germany. Come on, really? So you look at this stuff and it gets anybody out of sorts, right? And when you get out of sorts, you should go for therapy. I highly recommend it. What I do, I get a long chaise lounge, a leather one. I kick my feet up, put my arms folded behind my neck. I get very comfortable, and I make sure I'm ready to communicate with Jill Robin Payne. Jill Robin Payne is a psychotherapist. She's been on this program many times. It's almost safe to say that she might be our resident psychotherapist, at least one of our favorites for sure. And Jill Robin Payne has a book series. They're called the Bempathy books. They're very good. The latest one, Simplify Communication by Looking at the Third Side of the Coin. We talked about those in the past, and we always end up talking about them again because they're such great resources. They're very short. They're not very long books, but they're very impactful. And I know because I have a copy of each and every one of them, and you should too. Jill Robin Payne, welcome.
Thanks, Rich. Every time I come on, my head gets bigger and bigger. I don't know if I'm going to fit out the door, and I don't know what my husband's going to say to me after I get off because you make me feel so good.
You know, I had to open up all the doorways in my house to be able just to walk around. So listen, you know, during the break, I'm listening to some audio. The producer plays audio for me, the stuff that, they're getting throughout the day.
Right.
And I figure out what we're going to do in the next segment. And I hear this story about Apple, who's already committed to coming to the United States and manufacturing some stuff here. But they're also looking for ways to skirt the tariffs, like going to other countries, stockpiling certain things. And it's frustrating, right? What's frustrating about this for me is not about Apple trying to save money. Everybody's in the game of trying to save money. What frustrates me is how people watch the news and they get bent out of shape, right? I had lunch earlier today with someone who was like, help me understand. Give me the Reader's Digest on tariffs. And as much as I tried, I get this 3-hour radio show to tell everybody what I think. So I'm not really good at doing, quick sound bites. And I tried my best, and they are not a fan of Trump, but they were like, help me understand how this is actually helping. And all I could say was, look, if you didn't see, how 75 nations are now looking to step up and say, hey, let's make a deal, then you're paying attention to the wrong things. So our discussion today, as I lay down on my leather chase lounge so that you can shrink my head, as they say, I want your advice. I don't care about tariffs as much, but what do we do for people that are feeling like me today, that are just bent out of shape at all the misinformation, disinformation, and spin that's out there in the media?
Right. Well, one, we're going to need to do some empathy, because when people get in survival mode and when people feel like they're blindsided, Rich, they get in a survival mode and they freak out. And
that's called fight, flight, or freeze, right?
It is. And so even Trump said the word yippee. I go, what is yippee? And he said, well, he paused on the tariffs because people were getting a little afraid. So he was saying yippee. I thought that was sort of a funny word. I think people need to understand who Trump is, whether you like him or hate him. It's sort of either they like him or hate him. And Trump is one, he is a billionaire. So whatever the market is doing, that's going to affect him. But that's beside the point.
Well, I want to dig into the point with you, Jill Robin Payne. The music means that I have to take a pause and get up off of my chaise lounge here to do a commercial. But we're going to come right back with Jill Robin Payne, licensed psychotherapist, author of the Bempathy book series. And we're going to keep talking me off the ledge because of all the tariff crazy. And the tariff crazy isn't even bothering me so much, but it is. Anyway, keep it locked right here. It's Rich Valdez coming right back with Jill Robin Payne.
Opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our conversation with Jill Robin Payne, one of my favorite psychotherapists. And I've got my feet up on my leather chaise lounge over here because I need some therapy today. Why? Not because the tariffs are giving me fatigue. I'm fatigued by what the people on the left are saying, making stuff up, making up stories. You got Eric Holder saying that this looks like 1930s Nazi Germany, when all we're trying to do is save some money and get manufacturing back into the United States. So, Jill Robin Payne, help me out here. We were talking about having some empathy, I guess, towards my critics and the dissenters on the left.
Right. And, you know, when I talk to people such as who you're talking to, I bring it down a level and I make it more personable. And I talk to them about if they had a friend that was always shortchanging them or taking advantage of them, what would they do with this friend? Would they keep that friend? Would they get a new friend? Would they tell the friend, hey, listen, there's some stipulations? And so that's pretty much what Trump is doing. And what he does is, and he does this all the time, he breaks expectations and he catches people off guard, which is the best way to psychologically get people's attention and get them to look at new ideas, different perspectives, which is what he wants to do. It's called disruption or interruption. And so that's what he does. And if you ever watch the show The Apprentice, he believes that the way that people do good business is competition. So he wants to give everybody opportunities. That way people are more accountable. And so that's what's going on. He wants to make people more accountable. And if I have one more thing, if I do group therapy and I'm at the hospital doing group therapy and someone's acting out, Rich, I'm not going to go, hey, Johnny, stop acting out. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to talk to the whole group and I'm going to say, hey, you know, we need to talk about respect. Well, Trump is giving tariffs to most everybody so that China doesn't stand out, even though in my mind, he's getting ready to fire China. He fired people.
China, you're fired.
Yes, and he can't do that, Rich. So he's doing it in a nice way by making the tariff very high and knowing who he's working with. He knows how China is, and they're just going to one-up him. So these are things that are going on, and Apple's smart. They're going to India. The next place people are going to be going to is Mexico, and I'm hoping that they're going to be coming back to America also. So what he is doing is he's doing a strategy, and then he pulled back, which gave people time to think. He's giving people time to think, because when you push something on somebody, it's hard for them to think. So he pulled back. It's a strategy. He did it on purpose.
Do you think Trump has been reading the Bempathy book series?
You know, I was going to say that he wants a win-win, and that is Bempathy. You empathize first, then you banter, and you always have a win-win mindset. Right. Yeah.
I love it. Folks, we're on with Jill Robin Payne, and she's not saying it, but I am. President Trump may or may not be reading her Bempathy book series on negotiating with his tariff strategy here. And I've got to tell you, I think it's effective. Something you said was really accurate here, though, that you got to understand the person a little bit and understand that this is a negotiation. And that's how negotiations work, whether you're buying a car or anything else. People, you know, you go to the car guy and he's like, yeah, let me see what I can do. Let me go to my manager. And the manager comes and goes, nope, can't do it. But here's what we can do, right? There's always the good cop and the bad cop. And here, Trump has to play both parts. So, you know, he's got to, you know, come out swinging in the hammer a little bit, and then he's got to come back and say, all right, take it easy. Let's talk. Let's make a deal. And then come back and, you know, swing the baseball bat and then come back. All right, let's make a deal. And, you know, it's a challenging thing. But, you know, who does it better than him? I think he's got a lot of experience in doing it. And it makes a lot of sense. Now, back to me, because I'm still on my couch. Now, I understand Trump, and I'm not mad at him. But I am mad at a lot of people that are just seemingly believing everything that they're told. And I understand it's part of my mission in life, right? To try and get on these airwaves and inform and entertain a little bit and help people to understand things, at least from my perspective. You know, it doesn't have to be yours, but at least consider a different perspective. What is your recommendation on people in your inner circle, people that, your outer circle, whatever circle, just people that you are dealing with in life that, you know, want to engage on certain things and you don't want to lose your stuff with them? What do you say?
Well, you know what? I listen to these people. I'm a psychotherapist, so I listen to people, and the more they talk, I shake my head. This isn't my clients, but when I'm talking about, I shake my head, so it's going up and down, not like a bobblehead, and that gets that person to perceive that I'm agreeing with them. And I let them go. Active listening, yes. And then, and you're going, and you're shaking your head, and then listen to them and see if you can find some fault in it. See if you can find some commonality on the side that you want to talk to, and that's what you start with. So you need to give me an example. I'm sure you can do it just when you listen. A lot of times when we listen, Rich, we're thinking, what am I going to say next? You know, I'm talking to you and I'm thinking, what am I going to say next to Rich? Instead of doing that, you listen to everything they're saying. You might even want to repeat what they have said as you're shaking your head.
You know, this is actually the strategy that I use in some part that I learned from the Empathy series. When I am dealing with callers that disagree with me, I let them go on and on and on. And I do actively listen to what they're saying. And if I need to pause to interject with a question or clarification, I do. But I try my best to do that because, you know, you want to understand where people are coming from. And you can't really presume, you know, that you know what people are talking about. But sometimes it takes so long to make the point. The segment is over, and we're all left like, what was that all about? You know, so sometimes you can't win them all. Now, Jill Robin Payne, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, you wanted to follow up. Go right ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if you even interject with something humorous, that gets them to get more on the other side of humor, and it will deter them. And then you can maybe interject what you want to say. And folks, you do that so well.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it. I just want to remind everybody that we're on with Jill Robin Payne. She's a licensed psychotherapist. And Jill Robin Payne, I want you to fill us all in on what's the trending current topic in mental health that you've been following. What's hot on your docket?
Okay, well, I've noticed a lot of the kids that I'm getting that are age 16 or 17 are having a flatter affect, which is affecting their mood, and they're very blah. And and it's very hard for them to get out of their room. So I'm thinking that it's something that we're creating something called seasonal affective disorder. They're not getting any light. And I've even suggested the light box for that. So that's what I've noticed a lot that's happening.
What is the light box? Is that like a fake window?
It's a light. It's a special light that's made for people that have seasonal affective disorder, and it's no longer called that. It's a depressive disorder, and they get that. They can get it on Amazon. I tell them to please talk to the doctor before they use it because you don't want to look directly in it, and it's for people that don't get out in the light and don't have enough vitamin D, and it really affects your mood and causes you to feel blah and depressed. So, so that's what I have noticed right now. Yes.
Jill Robin Payne, stick with me. I want to get one of your reactions to some news that there's been an uptick in children that have autism. And I find this interesting. And it's not necessarily a psychotherapist issue, but I think I'd like the perspective of a psychotherapist. So stick with me. Folks, we're coming right back with Jill Robin Payne.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. It's Rich Valdez keeping you company all night long. And guess what? We've got Jill Robin Payne with us. And a couple of things I want to talk about. First of all, tomorrow night, if you want to see and hear what conversation ensued with John Tobacco, myself, and the rest of the panel on Wise Guys on Newsmax TV. Make sure you tune in to John's show, Wise Guys. I'll be there as a guest this week. And we have an interesting conversation about Jon Stewart making fun of him for having an Italian last name. And he calls out Jon Stewart for that. So make sure you check out John's show. It's a really good one. And, of course, things don't stop with tariffs. We have a bunch of health issues in our country. We have a Secretary of Health and Human Services in Bobby Kennedy, and he is working hand in hand with the president to get things done. I got a clip on some statistics that are interesting, if not alarming. Check this out.
The autism rates have gone from our most recent numbers we think are going to be about 1 in 31, 1 in 12, so they're going up again from 1 in 10,000 when I was a kid. And we are going, at your direction, we are going to know by September. We've launched a massive testing and research effort that's going to involve hundreds of scientists from around the world. By September, we will know what has caused the autism epidemic, and we'll be able to eliminate those exposures.
So big. Think of that. So it was 1 in 10,000 children had autism, and now it's 1 in 31. Not 31,000, 31. That's a horrible statistic, isn't it? And there's got to be something artificial out there that's doing this. So you think you're going to have a pretty good idea, huh?
We will know by September.
So that's what's going on over at the White House with Bobby Kennedy, the HHS Secretary, and El Trompito, Donaldus Magnus, the 45th and 47th President of these United States. And I want to get your take on this. Not so much, why do you think it's happening and whatnot, Jill Robin Payne, but more so, how do you counsel people that have people in their families that may have autism, or even these undiagnosed cases? There's a lot of things that we learn as we move forward that, this was once called that, now it's called this. Now we're realizing, I read an article the other day that said that there's a correlation, although it's not enough to prove anything, between what level of spectrum disorder and ADHD. That's not just hyperactivity and whatnot, and just interesting stuff that I think needs to be explored. So what are your thoughts, and how do you handle this when you have clients come to you saying, so-and-so in my family is autistic and it's challenging, what do I do?
Well, first of all, you want to educate them on how to handle children that have autism and where they can get special help. For one thing, I'm certified in Nagala, and one of the big things that is wonderful for autistic children is equine therapy. Highly recommend it. Huh. But that's off topic.
Horseback riding.
Well, it's
like petting them.
Different. No, it's not petting them. It's being with the horses, and it's a very good experience. And there's different types of equine therapy. They would find out the one that's best for them, and that really does help autistic children. Also, doing things with the family, because one of the things with autism is they have trouble reading facial cues, and it depends on what degree and what level they are autistic. But first, I would have a family meeting, talk with them, find out what's happening in the family, how is this affecting them, and then talk about ways to help the child so that they can be mainstreamed into society. So that's what I would do. I do want to say something, though, on the electronics that we're having, the digital devices, and the screen time that we are having with the kids. Also, what happened with COVID, people are finding that these children are having a lot of trouble reading facial cues, and these are, quote, children that have no disorder. So they're finding out that they're having a lot of mental health issues, but it's from a lot of environmental factors. And so this is something that they're finding out now. And we need to work on that. I think we need more therapists. I think we need more people in the schools that can help children with these issues. So it's on the rise for a lot of reasons. Yeah.
You just said that there are a bunch of kids that are displaying or presenting symptoms similar to autism, but they don't have autism. They don't have any type of disorder. What they have is too much screen time, which is messing them up.
Yes, and there's something called emotional isolation, Rich, that I've had a couple of clients with, and basically they can't express themselves. They just sit there and they're very sad and they don't talk. They just sit there.
Wow.
It's yeah. So we need to do more physical things with the children. More, I say recreation. That was my BS, recreational therapy. They need to get out there and do some recreation, and we need to have a balance. I do believe we are creating mental illness.
Go ride a horse. That's the answer. Go ride a horse and
therapy
pet it
is
while
great.
you're there.
It's great.
Jill Robin Payne, you are terrific. Look at that. We're both laughing now. That means I can get off the couch.
Yeah.
You see, you fixed my issues. Folks, Jill Robin Payne is fantastic. I highly recommend her. Going to your calls momentarily. But, Jill, give everybody the website if they want to get a copy of the book or learn more about what you're doing. Where do they go?
Okay, so it's jillrobinpayne.com is my website. I'm at Jill Robin Payne on all the platforms, and Amazon are my books, and even on the audios is Meeting People. It's Not a Game.
Jill Robin Payne, you are a rock star. God bless you and have a great weekend. Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you, Rich. Bye.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Amigos, we're coming right back. Your calls and more. Georgia, Ohio, Alabama, Idaho. Keep it locked.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez.
All right, to the phones we go. Open phones across America. I want to start with Peggy in Akron, Ohio, WNIR. Peggy, go right ahead. This is the speed round.
I just wanted to thank you. I owe you a huge debt of gratitude. I am a registered Democrat. Most of the talk shows on the radio are Republican in nature. And I am being very tired of being called an idiot. I am not an idiot. I went to college. But although I guess you could still be an idiot and go to college. But I really appreciate you not calling people names, no matter who they are.
Well, Peggy, that's really kind of you. I promise I won't call you a name. I can't promise to not do that for AOC and Nancy Pelosi and a couple others out there because they really earned some of their names. But I do believe it's important for every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there, right? For John Q. Public, for Jane Q. Public. It's important for us to see the rest of the Americans, our amigos, as just that, as friends, as people that are fellow Americans. And we can't ever really work towards anything that's long term if we're villainizing every human being on the other side. I can happily villainize their policies and say that this is not good for our country. But the minute I think you start to take everybody down, then you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And I think that's never a good thing for me, right? But it does make for some good radio at times. And there's times I've been guilty of it. So, Peggy, I thank you for the compliment. I don't know if I deserve it, but I will accept it and appreciate it as well. God bless you, Peggy. Thank you. Shout out to WNIR. And there's the music. If you're able to hang out. We will continue with your calls in 6 or 7 short minutes. Idaho, Georgia, Alabama, and a couple more that are flashing there. I am Rich Valdez, and for some of you, it's the end of the road. For others, you'll be joining us for another hour of interesting talk radio with me, Rich Valdez. So keep it locked right here, and hasta la próxima. Take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Friday night edition of the program, and we're live and national. So if you want to join us, feel free. We're having our late night national town hall conversation. Here's the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And as the tariffs stuff goes on, and everybody's talking blah, 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 tons of progress is being made. Tons of progress, right? We have some progress being made by the president with respect to tariffs. We have progress being made with the border, which seems to have, nobody talks about the border anymore because it's doing so well. But I wanted to play a clip for you. And it's a really good clip. It's from someone we've had on the program before, Batya Unger Sargon. She was with Newsweek. I don't know if she's still there, but she's a fantastic commentator. I really enjoy my conversations with her, and maybe we'll invite her back on. But she had this to say on CNN, and it's a doozy. Listen to this.
What Trump basically wants is for our allies to consume a lot more of our products and for China to produce a lot less of what we consume. And so I think what he's going for is a kind of soft global embargo on China. And the way that he went about doing that is he basically picked up a baseball bat and said to the entire global elites, that's a really nice stock market you've got. It would be a shame if anything happened to it. And
I think that's excellent. I think that's an excellent analogy. Right? That's a really nice stock market you've got there. It'd be a shame if something happened. And he showed them, look what happens when we put all these tariffs. Look how they freak out. This is exactly how Trump has been able to work with the media that was against him, right? Everybody was against him, but he gets them to work with him because he understands how it works. And this is why I say he's a force to be reckoned with. He figures out how things work, and that's how he's able to outsmart people. I don't mean to minimize his intelligence in any way, but I am saying it's a pretty simple formula. You want to figure out how this works, figure out how it works, right? The media will attack you and attack you and attack you, but they can only attack you until they realize that you're what they need to survive. You are the air they breathe. You're the story. The minute you're the story, and what has he done since day one? Keep giving them stuff to talk about. Just keep giving them stuff. He knows they can't resist. I think we're going to take Greenland. Oh, my God, he said Greenland. He said Greenland. Yeah, I think we're going to rename the Panama Canal. How about this one? It shall be known as the Gulf of America. It's guaranteed. 3, 2, 1. Push, heads explode. He knows exactly how the media works. And now he knows exactly how these foreign dignitaries work, these heads of state. He knows they want a piece of the American pie. Listen to this.
the reason that I think that was effective is, I mean, Lutnick is saying that they could never have gotten such good deals if that pressure that you're actually describing wasn't there. But I think that was more designed for a domestic audience. And the reason that I think that is this: I've been thinking a lot about the 10 million Americans who lost their homes in the 2008 financial crisis, and how President Obama's first act in office was to give $700 billion to the banks that caused it, including $30 billion in bonuses to the crooks who organized it. And I'm thinking about how those very Americans saw a president pick Wall Street over Main Street, and what they saw this whole week was a president willing to go out there and fight for the forgotten men and women of this heartland and take on the entire international global order.
President Trump taking on Wall Street to protect Main Street. You gotta love that. You gotta love that. Stepping up for who? We the people. This is why people love him, because he does the right thing. Now, I want to get into a lot of things tonight. We're going to talk about some immigration in a little while. We're going to talk about Of course, whatever you guys want to talk about. Open phones across America. We're also going to talk about April being Sexual Assault Awareness Month and National Child Abuse Prevention Month. And I remember I used to work for the State Department of Children and Families. We used to wear blue ribbons all April long in honor of that. So I'm looking forward to that discussion. And so much that I want to cover. Tom Homan's out there swinging, doing an amazing job. So keep it locked here, folks. We're going to continue with your thoughts, your calls, reactions. I've had a few people on hold that I want to get to before we lose them. Let me see. Steve in Atlanta, I know you've been on hold. You wanted to say something about Apple and Vietnam. Go right ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. You are common sense, and I would love for you to run for governor somewhere.
I have no place in politics, but thank you.
You should think about that. I would give you the first $33 donation. Anyway, so the thing that Trump wanted to accomplish from the very first moment, because he's 6 chess moves above or ahead of us, right? Or normal thinkers. Okay, what he wanted China out of it. He wanted to remove China. So the point I made to your producer Alex is wonderful man. Is that what would be so wrong if Apple moved to, and so they did to some other country. You mentioned them. What would be so wrong if they moved their manufacturing to Vietnam? Vietnam now is the very first one that said 0-0. So 0-0 tariffs mean that we can move our manufacturing there and move them back over here, 0 tariff. So what would be the point in that? Well, it would be that we have cheap manufacturing in Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, India. There's so many places to go to that aren't adversarial. And that's what he wanted to do, and that's what's playing out, and everyone else is, I guess, trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I think you're right, Steve. And just something I want to add to that is part of where I would caution with Vietnam is they don't want to be under the thumb of China, but they are, right? The reason they have manufacturing there is because China has invested into building factories there so that people can use the Made in Vietnam label, even though these are Chinese factories. And that's been going on for a while. They do it in Mexico. They also have done it elsewhere. So I realize that that's a thing. But at the same time, I also realize that they would prefer to have more money in their pocket and a better relationship with the U.S. I would suspect, even though they're communists, right? The Vietnamese are communists, last I checked. And the Vietnamese that are not communists are all here in America, and they're Americans today. If you ever met a Vietnamese person in America, they are hardcore lovers of this country. Never met one that was not a Republican, and never met one that didn't love Trump. But all that aside, yeah, I get what you're saying. We're trying to create a new system here where we use AI, where we use robotics, where we use manufacturing and other people's money to make things in the United States. We don't have to have 10% of our economy going towards manufacturing. Maybe we can have 40. And some people think that is way too difficult to achieve. It's not going to happen overnight. I don't understand why anyone would think it would happen overnight. I think the answer here is it's been eroding for 30 years. And if we start today, we can get a leg up on it. And we probably should. Steve in Atlanta, Georgia, thank you for your call. Folks, we come back with more conversation with you. Let's see, Dothan, Alabama, Charleston, South Carolina, Boise, Idaho, WGKA, Atlanta, Georgia. And I also want to get into this April Sex Abuse Awareness Month. So keep it locked right here. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Today, Senator Shaheen of New Hampshire and I are introducing a resolution. That resolution recognizes April as Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month. Far too many Americans have suffered as a result of this terrible crime. Sexual violence doesn't discriminate. Statistics show that 2 in 5 women and 1 in 4 men will experience sexual assault sometime throughout their life. And yet, those numbers can't capture the pain, the fear, and the lifelong impact that survivors endure. We must ensure that these brave survivors know that they're not alone. That means expanding resources for survivors, holding criminals accountable, and fostering a culture where no one suffers in silence or shame.
That is Senator Chuck Grassley making the announcement that April is Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month. And I want to talk about a book that's co-authored by Jack Watts and his co-author Tom Davis Jr. And Jack Watts is with us to talk about the book because it's an interesting story. It's called An American Hero, One Man's Legacy of Fatherhood and Faith. And the story, despite the title, has a lot to do with the aforementioned Abuse and Awareness Month that Senator Grassley just talked about. Jack Watts, welcome.
Well, thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Now, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about this story. And in particular, I know your co-author and his family kind of went through this. Tell us a little bit about the story you guys write about.
Well, this is the story of one of the greatest generation guys. He was born on Hanging Dog Mountain, North Carolina. Very poor growing up. He and his 3 brothers were dropped off at an orphanage by the dad when they were 7, 6, and 3. And the hero of this story was 6 years old, and he never saw his father again. His mom had died of a brain tumor, so the dad just couldn't handle it and put him in an orphanage. Grew up in an orphanage and was really good at football, so he got a scholarship to be the quarterback at Duke University. All he needed to do was finish high school. The orphanage threw him out his senior year, so he couldn't do it, ended up shining shoes, said, I'm better off lying about my age and going into the Army. He did, right at the beginning of World War II. Came out and was in Patton's Third Army, marched across France, and went in as a buck private, came out as a second lieutenant. And so, truly one of the heroes. Married a woman who was real pretty in Cartersville, Georgia, and they began a family. The woman had a lot of issues. And when she finally, she'd never told anybody, she came out and said that she had been sexually abused as a child because she was very pretty. And her husband, the hero of the story, said he would never tell anybody about it and didn't for the remainder of his life. In that era of the 50s and 60s, because of the shame surrounding this, people kept it completely hidden. So when we decided to write the story, we made the determination that to not just talk about the heroics, but to give the full picture, and it involved her molestation, which she had 3 daughters, and one of them was molested. And then the grandchildren we had 3 generations of young girls who were sexually violated here in Georgia, and nothing ever happened to any of them until the very last, where a man actually did go to prison for what he had done, because instead of just remaining silent about it, they were willing to bring it out into the open. And the whole point that we made about putting this in the book is that if this was just sex, then people would get over it. But they don't, because this is a violation of a person's soul.
Right.
And that once they're hurt, once they're shamed, once their innocence has been robbed from them, it can never be replaced, and that it's something that damages them for the rest of their lives. And we wanted to bring it out into the open and just say, okay, we've got this heroic story of a great war hero, but at the same time, there's all of this damage that followed too. So that in heroism, there's also having to deal with things that are very disturbing.
Really is. It really is disturbing. And Jack, let everybody know how they get a copy of the book, An American Hero, One Man's Legacy of Fatherhood and Faith.
It's in Barnes and Noble. It's on Amazon. It's distributed by Simon & Schuster, published by Forefront Books. It's all over the place. And we also have an Audible book for it, too, which is done by Jamie Rennell, who's a rather famous radio voice, not radio voice, Audible book voice.
Narrator, sure. Well, thank you, Jack. I appreciate it. Good luck with the book. Godspeed to you guys, and thanks for sharing that story, because I think it's one of those things that we take for granted, right? And this a lot of this came to my attention when I worked for the state, and I worked in the Division of Prevention, which was in the Department of Children and Families. But moreover, it really came to light doing a show here. I did a show once where I saw something in People magazine during the day, and this woman, she said, there is a silent epidemic going on in our country of sibling sexual assault. And I thought to myself, my goodness, epidemic, that's strong language. I'd never heard of such a thing. And it turned out it really was just that. And it was a harrowing story. It really was. And as we progressed through the evening, and for those of you that are tuned in right now, remember how that interview went. The rest of our open phones across America was just one person after the next calling in to say, yeah, me too. I was also abused by a sibling. And one of the facts that she gave us was that the children of victims of sexual abuse are much more likely to be sexually abused themselves. And we just heard from Jack Watts. That's exactly how it went in this story as well. So Jack Watts, again, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. You're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. And amigos, we continue straight ahead with the rest of your calls and more. Open phones across America with me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company for the next, I don't know, it looks like a half hour now. We're down to the wire. Anyway, I want to get your thoughts on a couple of things. There's an article here in Fox News from just a couple hours ago, like when we started the show. Menendez brothers prosecutor asks court to withdraw request for reduced sentences. Now, they've been fighting this, right? So the Menendez brothers are claiming that they don't want, they want to get out of jail because they killed their dad or whatever it was because of the abuse that they were being undergoing, right? And you still have the government continuing to say we're not doing that. We're not on board. Lyle and Eric need to stay in jail. And this is interesting, right? Because I find that people younger than me 100% believe that these kids were sexually abused and otherwise by their parents, and they should be set free. And everyone older than me is like, these guys are monsters. They killed their parents. Who does that? Throw them up and lock away the key. And I find the whole thing very interesting. So let's see some of the resentencing points here. The former DA of Los Angeles, George Gascon, filed a motion to resentence the brothers days before losing his reelection. The current DA, Nathan Hochman, spent weeks reviewing the case and said he's found they showed no remorse and do not deserve freedom. A judge is going to rule on whether Hochman can withdraw Gascon's motion or not. And as it stands, the resentencing hero is scheduled for next week. So this is the latest with what's going on there. I want to get your thoughts and calls on this as we've been talking about child abuse and neglect and whatnot. And before I get to your calls, I wanted to finish a thought, but the music started, which was that show. I don't know if you guys remember that. Maybe one day we can use some of it as a best of. It was floored me. Might have been during, while I was filling in for Jimbo before we rebranded the show. But it really was a remarkable show. First for me in my radio career, where, I thought we were going to talk about family secrets. And I meant it did you know Uncle so-and-so has a toupee, or any type of funny thing. But I guess we had that segment the day before or the segment before on that sibling sexual assault stuff. And I guess people wanted to talk about that. And some courageous soul called in and confided in us on the radio, since it was relatively anonymous. I don't know this person. They didn't know me. And they might have heard of me, but, they don't know me. And they said, my family secret is that I was abused by my sibling for whatever. And then somebody else calls, I was abused by my parent. And I felt like an hour of straight calls of people calling in saying they were sexually abused by family members. And I was floored. And I was like, wow. So this lady tells People magazine and then tells me on the radio that sibling sexual assault is an epidemic, a silent epidemic. And I was critical of that. I shouldn't say critical. I was incredulous of it because I was like, no way. There's no way that that's an epidemic. I'm sure it's happened, but it can't be that often. And she said it happens more often than you think. And then we the people, decided to call in and confirm everything she said. That she, in fact, was accurate in her assessment of how many people are facing this. And it blew me away. And honestly, I didn't know what to do. It was way too serious of a topic. I intended it for it to be funny. It wasn't funny at all. And I was honored at the same time that people confided in me and in this program to share this dark truth. And one guy was in tears and saying, I've never, ever said these words before. It was just really something. And, even if it's just mentioning it every April, and even if we don't ever get to play it again for you, but I think you should hear it. It's worthy of having a conversation around this stuff because, man, who knew, right? Who knew? Just like these Menendez brothers. Who knew? Anyway, let's go to Paul. Paul's in Boise, Idaho. KBOI in the building. Boise, Idaho. Go right ahead.
Thanks for taking my call, Rich.
Yes, sir.
That term, abuse excuse, came from that trial. The lady's name, the attorney, she was very good, and she gave quite the performance trying to get them off with their knowledge of their father giving them different kinds of abuse, not just sexual abuse, but all kinds of harm type abuse as well. punching, kicking, whatever. And, those kids were privileged. So when it came time to get a good lawyer, they got a good lawyer because their parents were dead and they had the money to be able to afford one. And so they did manage.
Couldn't have been that good. They've been in jail since then.
Right. It was a life sentence, and they're getting off the hook, I believe. I feel as though they need to serve the life sentence. They've shown no remorse. It's all about me. It always has been with those two brothers. They had a life of privilege that you and I would never have known or never will know. And I feel as though, you get, is there truth in sentencing? We have a little problem with the death penalty here in Idaho. They keep on letting somebody outlive the people that put them behind bars. The ones that it's just
the people on death row are serving life, and I get it's kind of defeating the purpose. I get it. Well, I don't know how this goes, Paul. I don't have a crystal ball, and honestly, I've never had a strong opinion on the Menendez case because it was so prolific at the time. It was everywhere, right? It was just like, wow, everybody's writing about this so much and talking about it and covering it on TV that I was just like tuned out. It was like white noise. I was like, no, I can't do it. Can't get into it. But as of late, as they've started their appeal process and whatnot, I've talked to a number of people, and I'm still not sold on either story. I don't know if this was they were abused and they retaliated because they were abused. I don't know if they were just psychos because they were so spoiled rotten that they were just that, spoiled rotten, and decided to kill their parents. I've seen spoiled kids before, and they tend to mouth off at their parents. They'll hit their parents. Sometimes the more spoiled the kid, the worse they'll do to the parent. And this may be a case of that as well. So, honestly, good thing I wasn't on their jury. It would have been a hung jury. I don't know how I would have decided on this one. But, Paul, thanks for your thoughts. I appreciate it. And I want to know, what do you guys think? Whether it's politics, whether it's the Menendez brothers sexual assault case, or anything else that we're talking about, tariffs and whatnot, give me a call. We're going to your calls in Vermont, South Carolina, Alabama. You're up next, by the way. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We just tried to go to JW in Dothan, Alabama. Let's double check that line to make sure he's okay. For now, we'll go to Sherry, New Berlin, Pennsylvania, KDKA. Sherry, go right ahead.
I cannot believe I am talking to the great Rich Valdez.
Oh, my gosh.
But oh my gosh, is right. But I do want to make a comment about one of the callers that you just had on. He
Yes.
said how the Mendez brothers had no remorse whatsoever. They showed no remorse. And I spoke to your guy before, and I told him that I was severely abused by my mother and stepfather growing up. I did not think I was going to live to even be a teenager. And I just went through such hellish abuse. And we grew up with, we now have anxieties and depression and mental illness. And if I would have killed my mother and stepfather, I don't know if I would be remorseful either, because I think they absolutely deserve it. They got away scot-free for what they've done to me.
Wow.
And I don't think I would be remorseful.
I don't think many people would blame you. And I'm glad you're adding some light and context, not to their story, but really to yours. But it gives, a little bit of context for all these things. And I think that's where I'm coming from, right? Sherry, I spent some time working in government in this area, and you hear about it. When I was a kid, you would see people missing kids on the back of a milk carton. And that was it. You'd see a movie once a year that came out on one of the TV networks, and it was kind of like a forgotten thing. You know, it was par for the course. People were like, people have to discipline their kids, blah, blah, blah. But we didn't really hear all these crazy stories of abuse. Like earlier, I read an article about a woman who's a foster mom. She's had 200 foster kids, and this most recent one, who's been beaten many times, she says that she may have been traded this child for a monkey, an exotic monkey. That's the type of crazy abuse that I think we don't hear about a lot, and it's hard to believe when you do hear about it. So when somebody like you, Sherry, has the courage to call in and say, hey, look, I went through this, and I don't know that I would feel bad either. I can't judge you for that. I can't, right? Because, you know, I've never been in that position, and what betrayal is worse than that of a parent, right? Of a mom inflicting pain on their own child. Many of us don't know that. So, you know, kudos to you for having the courage to bring it up to our attention.
Thank you.
So what, do you think these guys did it, though? The Menendez brothers?
Do I think they did it?
Yeah. I mean, do you think that they did it because they were trying to save themselves, or they did it, you know, to get rich?
I don't think they did it to get rich. If that's really what happened, and a lot of kids, I don't think, and I know they say, oh, they're entitled and stuff. I came from a very poor family, but I have done well for myself in life.
Good for you.
Because I wanted to break that chain. But if most kids don't lie about the abuse that they undergo, once their abusers are gone and out of the picture, that's when they finally are brave enough to say, listen, this is what happened to me. I don't think they did it for the money. I think, you know, it could have possibly actually happened. And they served a very long time in jail. If it's really proven that it was done because of the sexual assault from their father, my God, let them out.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm with you on that. And this is why I've never been able to really weigh in on this, because it was so inconclusive to me. I couldn't go one way or the other. But thank you again. I really appreciate you shedding some light on this. And thank you for being so kind and the kind words you said to me. I appreciate you listening, Sherry. Call back anytime.
So much. Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. And let's see. We continue. I want to go to JW. Let's check JW again. Dothan, Alabama, WDBT. JW, go right ahead.
Hey, it's an honor, Rich. Look, I'm coming from the original L.A., Lower Alabama, way down here in the Garden of Eden, brother.
Garden of Eden. Praise God. Yeah. Hallelujah. Love that. What's on your mind, J-Dub?
Look, man, I got to confess. I've got some Democrat people around me, and I know them. And
Sorry
I've tried to be peaceful with them. God, I have tried to have conversations with them. But they on a different plane, brother. I mean, they don't make sense. It's like they're in an alternate universe. I mean, I don't know what to do, man. Look here, I'm going crazy just trying to keep up with your show tonight. I'm listening to a different show on my channel down here, I guess. I was listening to the lady psychiatrist a while ago when you had the guy talking on you about the book.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Well, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. We're here every night, brother. I hope you tune in.
Yeah, I'm kind of stuck out here in the middle. What would be your suggestion for me to try to make sense out of these Democrats, Rick?
Well, I'm going to give you two things. Number one, I'm going to tell you, we have a couple that call here, right? One of them is David out in San Francisco. Another one is Jerome in Charleston, South Carolina. And Jerome is a lot easier to talk to because he likes to make fun of everything. And that's fun. It's simple. It's not personal attacks. It's about the issues. But some of them, you know, like David in San Francisco calls here and he tries to constantly, you know, turn the interview around on me. He wants to interview me to try and get me into a corner and say, gotcha, you know, and he tries to make parallels between me and the last one that got me ticked off. He said something about Lord Haha, who was this Nazi propagandist. And ultimately, the whole thing, I think for you, JW, is you just have to look at, you know, sometimes you got to look at people that you don't agree with as, you know, like little people, You know, like, not, I don't mean like dwarfism. I mean, like, how would you treat your 2-year-old nephew? How would you treat, your 6-year-old niece? With this level of kindness and gentleness, and just go along with it. It's all right. Well, there's always another side to the story, and you can't win every debate. And I think it was Jefferson, might have been Jefferson or Madison, I forget, who said, never get into a battle of wits with an unarmed man. And those are words to live by. That's the first piece of advice. The second piece is, I'm about to take a call from Jerome in Charleston, South Carolina when we come back. So keep it locked right here, JW. You'll hear how it goes. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, to the phones we go. We have someone that loves to disagree with me, Jerome in South Carolina, WTMA. Jerome, go for it.
Wop, bop, doo, bop, wop, bam, boom. Tutti frutti, oh, Rudy. Tutti frutti, oh, Rudy. Hey, by the way,
yes.
that guy from Alabama, he was very funny, by the way. Hey, you are
not as funny
amazing.
as you.
You are just so amazing how you do it. I don't know how. I mean, you vote for a guy who says, I could stand on a street corner and shoot someone, and I wouldn't lose any support. And by the way, has he paid E.G. and Cal that settlement yet? Speaking of, could it be sexual? Not me to make light of sexual harassment, but has he paid her yet?
I hope he never pays her. She's a fake, phony, fraud liar.
Mr. Wait a minute. 1 minute you're talking about sexual assault, and then it happens. Oh no, I hope she doesn't get a dime. See, this is where I get so confused talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you are amazing, man. I don't know how you do it.
Well, it has a lot to do with my hair. I'm like Samson. The power is in my hair, Jerome, because we're not going to give. And listen, he may have to pay that. I don't know. I think he's going to keep it in court as long as he can. The judge comes up with this obscure thing that says, look, we determined that he did not sexually assault this woman, but he called her ugly. And because he called her ugly, we're going to call that harassment. And because of that, we want him to pay whatever it was, $2 million, $5 million, whatever it was. That's crazy. I tell a lot of people that they're ugly. I'm not giving nobody any money.
Hey, he had a chance to get on the witness stand and defend himself. And what did he do? He hid behind his lawyers like he always does, like the little
I would do
rat
the
that he
same
is.
thing. The last thing I'm going to do is take the stand in a case where they're making up stories about me. That's insanity. I wouldn't do that. Anyway, Jerome, thank you for your call, my brother. I appreciate it. And, Kevin in Indiana. I'll tell you what kind of Hispanic I am. I'm the kind that loves my Puerto Rican heritage. I love America. I can't stand spineless libs like you that are concerned about me more than you're concerned about this country, you pendejo, you. Anyway, take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.